Have you ever felt like your mind is a radar that never turns off? You look at someone and instantly know they're lying, even though their smile seems genuine. You hear a few stories and already sense that relationship won't last, even though they look so happy. You can feel what's about to happen, but when you speak up, people tell you you're overthinking, negative, or too sensitive. If you've ever felt that way, this video is for you. Carl Jung called this introverted intuition, a rare psychological function that only a small group of people possess. But Jung didn't call it a gift. He called it a burden of the soul, a kind of curse that can disconnect you from yourself, from others, and even from reality itself. In this video, we'll uncover why the more you see, the more exhausted you become, why seeing through everything can make you feel lost, and most importantly, how to transform your intuition from a heavy burden into a true inner power. Some people are born seeing too much, not with their eyes, but with their senses. They walk into a room and instantly know who's pretending, who's hiding pain behind a smile. On the surface, it looks like a rare gift, but inside, it's a silent storm. Because when you see too much, you lose the privilege of innocence. Carl Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And for those with introverted intuition, that awakening happens sooner, deeper, and often more alone. You see what others don't, but because of that, you carry worries they'll never understand. What the world calls intuition feels, to you, like a doorway to too many layers of reality, a place where you can't silence the echoes of what hasn't yet happened. That's why Jung didn't call it a gift. He called it a burden of consciousness, the weight of waking up too early in a world still fast asleep. After asking yourself, why does the thing that makes me special also make me suffer? You probably want a clear answer. What exactly is introverted intuition? This so-called NI, and why does it make life feel so heavy for so many? Carl Jung described NI as perception via the unconscious. In other words, it's awareness that flows through the unseen. Unlike most people who navigate life through what they can see and hear, those with strong NI, often types like INTJ or INFJ, perceive the world through a kind of sixth sense. They don't need anyone to spell things out. A glance, a tone, the air in a room. That's all it takes to know what's truly happening. And most of the time, they're right. But it's not guesswork. Their minds are constantly connecting invisible dots, old memories, micro-expressions, recurring patterns, and from that they form an image so precise it's almost eerie. Jung believed these individuals tap into the collective unconscious, a vast inner archive of archetypes that have existed for thousands of years in the human psyche. The mother, the betrayer, the savior. You may have never studied psychology, but you feel this. Sometimes you dream of events before they happen. Sometimes you meet a stranger and instantly know whether they're safe or dangerous. And later you realize, you were right. That's NI. For those who live with it daily, life isn't just a series of events, it's a continuous stream of meaning, foresight, and unfinished futures. But the problem begins when that stream refuses to stop. Now that we understand what NI is, let's look at how it shows up in daily life. The truth is, you've been living with it all along, even if you didn't have a name for it. It's that strange feeling when you walk into a room and something feels off. Everyone's laughing, smiling, acting normal, yet deep down, you sense something doesn't fit. And weeks later, the truth comes out. Someone really was hiding something. It's also that moment when you talk to a friend and just know their relationship is about to end, even though they insist everything's fine. You don't hear voices from the universe, you just have a quiet, undeniable sense, this isn't going anywhere. And you're right. Introverted intuition doesn't hand you evidence. It doesn't explain itself with logic. It gives you a whole picture, a vivid intuition, as if you're seeing the final scene before the story even begins. Carl Jung called this the ability of perception via the unconscious. To many, this seems like a strange gift, but to you it's instinct, the way your mind naturally operates. You don't analyze piece by piece, You feel the entire pattern, and that's what makes you different. It's what makes you lonely. And sometimes, it's what makes you wonder if there's something wrong with you. But there isn't. You're simply living with a compass most people don't have. You see what others don't. You sense danger, understand motives, and sometimes even catch glimpses of the future before it happens. But over time, you start to feel tired, disconnected, stressed by things you can't even name. And you begin to wonder, why am I suffering because of my own ability? Carl Jung saw this pattern long ago. He called it an imbalance between the psychological functions. When one part of your psyche grows too dominant, in this case, introverted intuition, its opposite, sensation, awareness of the present, of the physical world, begins to fade. Jung wrote, when one function dominates, the others are inevitably inferior. In simple terms, the more you live in your head, chasing meaning, patterns, visions, and depth, the further you drift from your body, your routines, your sense of time, and the ordinary rhythm of daily life. That's why you might read people easily, yet forget to eat. You understand emotional patterns deeply, yet miss deadlines. You sense the truth in others, yet feel exhausted for no reason. Is like a magnifying glass for the soul, but if you stare through it all day, you forget to look at the ground beneath your feet. Jung called this a reversal of inner order, and if it continues unchecked, it can cost you your health, your relationships, and even your sense of control over your own life. The problem isn't itself. The problem is that you've let it drive the car, while the other parts of you are left sitting in the back seat. If you let drive your life without guidance, the cost isn't just exhaustion, it's the danger of being devoured by your own mind. Carl Jung once warned, the more you become identical with a powerful archetype, the more you are its victim. The first trap is archetypal inflation. When you start believing you're somehow special, chosen, or destined for a greater mission. Gives you grand visions and deep insight, but without grounding, it turns you into the protagonist of your own myth, a story so inflated it pulls you away from real life. The second trap is psychic contamination, when you can no longer tell where your feelings end and others begin. You absorb sadness, anxiety, and pain around you like a sponge. Sometimes you're so drained you can't even tell, am I actually sad, or just sad for someone else? Jung called this emotional infection, a transmission of feelings between unconscious minds. The third trap is symbolic collapse, when everything becomes too meaningful. A falling leaf turns into a prophecy, a random comment keeps you awake all night. You stop seeing things as they are and start seeing symbols everywhere. And when everything becomes symbolic, real life begins to crumble. This is the low point of the journey, when the very ability that once made you special starts pulling you under, not because you're broken, but because you haven't yet learned how to live with your gift in a healthy way. After passing through those three traps, you may find yourself falling into a state of psychological exhaustion. You no longer trust your own intuition, yet you can't survive by numbing yourself like everyone else. You no longer belong to the world of symbols, but you haven't found solid ground in the physical one either. And that's when you realize you're in the middle of a journey, the very process Carl Jung described as individuation, the path toward becoming your true self. But to reach it, those with strong often have to walk through three great stages. The first stage is when you discover the gift. At this point, feels like magic. You understand people deeply. You see patterns no one else can see. Life seems to have a hidden depth meant only for you. Jung called this the moment when the unconscious rises and brings light with it. The second stage is when you fall into the curse. Your intuition is no longer a gift, it becomes a burden. Everywhere you look, you see danger, hidden meaning, uncertain futures you can't explain. You start to feel lost in your own world. And the third stage is when you begin to integrate. You stop letting dominate everything and start balancing it with the other parts of your mind, reason, emotion, the body itself. Jung wrote, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. This is the faint light that appears after the darkness. It's not the end, but the first time you truly understand. You don't have to abandon your gift, you just have to learn to live with it, in a way that keeps you whole, and that journey is where everything truly begins. When you've reached the deepest point of disconnection, you no longer want to run from your intuition, but you also can't let it steer your entire life on its own. This is where Carl Jung offers a path, not to make you less special, but to keep you from being suffocated by your own gift. He called it individuation, the journey of becoming a whole human being. Jung never believed in healing by rejecting parts of yourself. He believed in harmony between opposites. He wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. And to begin that process, there are 3 essential survival skills to practice. First, reconnect with the present moment. Live through your body, through your senses. Don't analyze, don't interpret, just feel. The sound of the wind, the scent of coffee, the weight of your feet on the ground." Jung emphasized, no tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. You can't ascend if you don't know how to ground. Second, turn intuition into action. Write, paint, speak, in any form that brings the images in your mind into the real world. Intuition has no power if it stays hidden in the dark. Third, protect your energetic boundaries. Not every emotion you feel belongs to you. Learning to separate yourself from other people's pain is essential for survival. Individuation isn't a destination, it's a commitment to live each day a little deeper, a little steadier, to live without abandoning any part of who you are. In the end, here's what I've realized. You don't need to apologize for seeing too much. You just need to learn how to stand steady in everything you see. Carl Jung called this individuation, the process of bringing all parts of yourself into harmony to become whole. But for me, it began the moment I stopped asking, "Am I too strange?" and started asking instead, "If I see this, what will I do with what I see?" I used to be angry at my own mind, angry at how it was always playing chess, analyzing, predicting, connecting. But then I thought, being able to play mental chess and feeling frustrated by it is like being a world-class runner and complaining about it. It doesn't make any sense, you just keep running. So I did. I kept running. I wrote, I shared, I did what I was good at, without apologizing for it. And strangely enough, the more I lived authentically, the more I pressed in instead of hiding, the more people like me began to appear. Not many, but enough. Enough to remind me that I wasn't alone, enough to show me that I wasn't a misfit. I was simply walking the path meant for me. So don't hide your gift just because the world doesn't understand it yet. Don't fear that your inner light will make you an outcast. As long as you keep living truthfully, as long as you keep moving forward, the ones who get you will find you. And while you wait for them, if you ever need a friend, get a dog, because sometimes the very thing that once made you suffer is the thing that's been guiding you home all along.